So let me get into this, man. So, I'm in the great lock-in of my life right now. Okay. You know, I've shared a bunch of hard things, humbling things, and there's more to unpack there. But, you know, it's important to know that's behind me. It's recently behind me. I've learned a great deal. I can't wait to share, but it's behind me. Look at me. I'm glowing. I'm not in my winter. Okay. I'm also not in my peak. Okay. And I do believe, by the way, in rapid ascents. Those are real. They happen. You can spend a lifetime or a decade building and building and building, and then eventually you hit a whole new zone. Those moments are real. They do happen. I'm not in the peak, and I'm also not in my valley. I'm in the great lock-in. I'm in a place in time where I am doing exactly what I told you to do basically 3 or 4 years ago when I was producing all the time. What would I tell you guys all the time? Hey, lock in, go for 24 months where you're eating shit, you're loving the mundane, you're sacrificing, you're doing certain things without pay, you are investing in knowledge and acumen and insight, you're building infrastructure. All of those things is what I'm doing right now. Okay. So for example, you know, I'm the CEO of my business. I've taken a massive pay cut in my salary. I don't have any shame with saying that. Okay. A CEO is not defined. Any real hustler is never defined by what's in his pocket right now. I could be up 300 thou liquid and I could be down 30 thou liquid and you would never know the difference. And that's where I think the culture has gone a little too heavily indexed on the glorification of money. Okay. And that's a kind of a tired argument, but it's important to know, okay, there's a cultural conversation around financial literacy, which I think is important and it's good. And I want our culture to be doing that. However, just to keep it a buck, it's not about the money, at least for me. I like, you know, to me, being a hustler is being resourceful, is being creative, is being imaginative, it's being brave, it's being bold, it's being kind, it's being philanthropic. It's all those mixture of those things. That to me is what a real G is. If you grew up in any city of any kind, there was always a real G. And a real G kept it smooth, always had resources, redistributed them, put people on. Those were my earliest images of a real G. And shout out to my OG, actually, while I'm at it, my guy, Hugo Sanchez. Okay, you guys know him because he's the CEO of Modi, and he was featured on, you know, that guy that goes around and he interviews rich people for like 60 seconds or some shit. He caught Hugo. I thought those things were fake. He caught Hugo entering a building, true story, okay? And he interviewed Hugo, and Hugo had his moment, and he went crazy viral. He had his rocket ship moment. We just talked about this. Unplanned, by the way. I'm flowing here. I just talked about that. Rapid ascents do happen, but you need a body of work to get you there. Hugo, my OG, had his rapid ascent after putting in 2 or 3 decades of hard work. He had his rapid ascent. Why is Hugo my OG? Some of you guys have the context, some of you don't. But when I was just a doorman, just to rewind here for a second, before all of this, okay, I was just a kid with dreams, and I was doormanning in New York City, and I could not comprehend how people behind that desk were laissez-faire, were nonchalant, and didn't care about the residents going in and out of the building. I was a young kid. I saw nothing but not opportunism, but opportunity. I didn't want to leverage anyone maliciously, but I wanted to connect with everybody. And Hugo is the real OG. Hugo is an example to me of a guy, a stand-up dude. He would always come into the building, and when he went to Philly, I'll never forget, Hugo, I'll never forget. One day you went to Philly, okay? One day you went to Philly, and you came back, and you brought us Philly cheesesteaks from Philly. Just think about this. How much did that cost Hugo? $7? $10? And that was when I was 18 years old. Today I'm 32. Okay, that's 14 years later. that Philly cheesesteak still means something to me. Hugo would make sure that we had coffee. Hugo would dap us up. He would listen to us. He was engaged with us. That boy was smooth. He drove the M5 Beamer. He had $100,000 AP on the resist. And by the way, he was an outsider in this setting because everybody else in this building, they had money, but they didn't come from where we came from. And so in Hugo, I saw, maybe for the first time, somebody who came from exactly where I came from, who made it. And he was kind and resourceful. And, you know, God bless real G's. And so that is the image that I had in my mind when I was getting started. And I've lost my train of thought, but I'm going to find it right back here. So the current phase of life that I'm in, after I met Hugo, okay, I locked in. Ask about me. Today, this day, if you go through the streets of Harlem, USA, and you go from building to building to building, any doorman that has been there, because a lot of those doormen, it's a union job, you get a lot of tips, they stay for a long time, any one of them still remember me. I was knocking on door. What did I do? I did the same thing that Hugo did. I would pull up, I would give him a coffee, I would listen. I didn't have the bread like that, but they saw in me, you don't need to fake anything. They saw in me exactly what I was, which is a young kid who really wanted it, who was putting forth his best effort to make it. And those doormen, Hugo ran a chain of dry cleaners, and so I got into the dry cleaning business. And the way I found my initial customers was through other doormen, because I was also a doorman. And when their residents would walk in, just like when my residents walked in, I put them on to Hugo. Okay, when I was a doorman and the residents would walk in the building, I would say, hey, use this dry cleaner, which I knew was owned by Hugo. When I would go to other doormen, they would do the same thing for me. This is the value of having an image of something or someone, more importantly, someone that you look up to. Hugo was my OG. However, I'll never forget, this is something I've never shared. I've shared that before. There was another doorman named Jesus Collado, Dominican kid. And Hugo, by the way, wasn't giving out fucking silver spoons and helping you setting your business up for you. He gave me an opportunity. That's it. He said, yo, if you want to start a cleaner, I have the facility. You can come to me. I'll clean that shit for you. You're good. But this is an unshared story. There was another kid that he extended the same opportunity to. His name was Jesus Collado. And I was kind of jealous of Jesus because Jesus was a little older than me. He was a little smoother than me. And mind you, I lived in Washington Heights in uptown Manhattan. Jesus lived right in Brooklyn where the whole operation was. And Jesus was able to show up every day and work. And then he came up with the idea to call his cleaners Faith Cleaners. And it caught the attention of Hugo, and they branded that shit. And before I knew it, they had come up with some joint venture. They had a lot of like attention behind it, and Faith Cleaners was going to be the most popping cleaners. And meanwhile, I was on my very own, and I started my cleaners. My shit was called John Henry Cleaners. It's simply my name and then cleaners. And I felt like I was going up against Goliath as David. And, you know, that early experience, they had everything going for them to be successful. We had the same operating facility that we were using, Jesus and I were basically little middlemen, and we would bring the dry cleaning to the operating plant. Okay, so we had basically the same business model, but Jesus had all the things going for him. He had the attention of the OG. He had a good concept. He had the proximity to the operation. I was mad far. I was an hour and a half away by train, and nobody was paying attention to my ship. But this is why I believe in the lock-in, because every single day I went to work. And by the way, I got fired from my job right before Christmas, which was a fucking blow to me, because I really was counting on that tip money and then I was going to quit. But God had more beautiful things in store, because by me getting fired before Christmas and not getting those tips, that forced me. When I got fired, the very next day, I told myself I am going to treat my business as if I was on the clock. I'm going to wake up at 5. I'm going to put my suit on. I'm going to take the train. I'm going to go to Harlem, and I'm going to do the only thing I know how to do, which is go hustle. And I did that day in, day out, day in, day out. And eventually the doorman started to put people onto me. And eventually I started to get calls. And eventually my volume grew. And by the way, I wasn't hearing a whole lot of motion from Faith Cleaners. And eventually one of the residents in the building where I doormanned worked on a film set. And he said, yo, I heard you was doing this thing. Come through. I went, and he put me on to what became my first film account, which is The Wolf of Wall Street. If you watch The Wolf of Wall Street, every single piece of clothing that was in that movie was cleaned by yours truly, the age of 18. Every single piece. Have you ever seen Boardwalk Empire? Every single piece of wardrobe, and that's a period piece, 1920s garments, cleaned by me. Law and Order, we did SVU for 8 seasons, cleaned by me. My lock-in period was 18 months, where all I did every day was wake up early. And by the way, before I even had a car, I was lugging these sacks of laundry through the subway system, literally. You can ask my pops, you can ask my brother. Sometimes I had so much laundry I needed to ask my brothers to help me transport them. And when I would get to the film sets, they would say, hey, we'll have our team bring them out to your van. And I would say, no, this is a white glove service. I didn't even have a van. Real shit. I remember one time, untold story, one time, Joseph Cortez, a wardrobe supervisor of Boardwalk Empire, didn't believe that I had a laundry facility. And I was like, fuck, he's on to me. Because I didn't. Okay, I was just a middleman. I would go pick them up and I would go drop them off at like a plant where they got cleaned, but like that plant was not mine. And this is how you know you have a real OG. I was like, yeah, absolutely. And he was like, all right, my guys are going to follow you to your shop. And I was like, no fucking problem, Joseph. Have them follow me. I get in my car. I load their laundry. I'm on the way to a cleaner that doesn't exist, and they're following me. And this is to get Boardwalk Empire, which would end up, I think we did $150,000, $200,000 in revenue with them. And I called Hugo. This is a true story. I called Hugo, and I told Hugo, I was like, yo, I need you to do me the biggest favor right now. Hugo had a beautiful dry cleaner in downtown Williamsburg called Gretsch Cleaners. I was like, yo, I'm on my way to Gretsch. And I need you to tell your staff to pretend like I'm the fucking boss when I go there, okay? Because I have the movie account behind me and they don't believe that I own a cleaner. And he was like, he's like, John, for you, anything. That's a real OG. And I pull up to this dry cleaner in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, downtown, fucking nice, with a beautiful chandelier. I'll never forget it. And I walked in and I was like, I didn't know if they got the memo or not. And I was like, hey, and the staff was like, hey, boss. And I was like, yes, in my mind. And we walked around and I pretended to do everything. And then they checked the box and I got the account. Real OG. That's real OG shit. So I went through my lock-in period, okay, where I drove around after I got a whip. Like, I made enough money to buy a car. I bought a car, all cash. I mean, it was $3,000. You know, it's just a little cash car. But I was going around every day and I was picking up clothes. I was, I would pick up clothes. I would tag them in my house, basically prepare them for processing, bring them to the dry cleaner early, spend all day picking up new clothes, in the evening, I would go to the dry cleaner, pick up the orders, drop them off, and then go back home. It was probably 14-hour days, 6 days a week, because we weren't not open on Sundays. Now here's where it gets interesting. Eventually, 18, 19, 20 years old, I am making $20,000 or $30,000 a month. Gross. But I'm making it. It's all running through me. Okay. Those accounts are solely under my name. And now I'm a 19-year-old kid with access to $20,000 or $30,000 a month, you know? And I went through the beginning of my first little period where I started tasting, nicer things as a young man. And by the way, again, I'm 19. Most of my peers are in college. I can't relate to anybody my age. So I would go on really nice dates, and I would say, hey, because like I couldn't even drink. So I can't go to pubs and shit because they're going to ask me for my ID. So the only places that did an ID were like really nice places. So I would go to like nice ass places and just go on like nice dates. I was watching a lot of Mad Men and I wanted to be like Don Draper so bad. So I would get these nice suits and, I practiced a life that I saw in my head. And slowly but surely, I experienced basically my first little peak. And that business also went through hard times. And then I had to go through a lock-in period again. And then I had other peaks. But basically what I'm referencing is this cycle is repeatable. And every time you do it, you go up a level. But the cycle repeats. So back when I was first starting, my first lock-in period was tagging dry cleaning, tagging laundry, right? And then I went through my ascent period where I got all the accounts because I was doing all the hard work and I was locked in. And then I, saw some cash. And then, we went through another valley. I can't even remember what it might have been now. It's like, I opened up a storefront and then I expanded my costs and then I just probably wasn't making enough revenue and things got tight. And then I figured a way out of that. And then I went through a lock-in period and then I went through an ascent period where I sold the business. And then basically it's like this every time. Valley, come up, you grind, you ascend. Valley, come up, you grind, you ascend. Valley, come up, you grind, you ascend. And so if I zoom out, right? I've done that many, many, many times. Many times. And now if I zoom in to where I am in my life, I'm in another one of those. I've gone through my winter. I went through my ascension, right? Loop got started and I grinded. And then we went through a rapid ascent. We raised a ton of cash. We did all the great things. We got a big building in Austin and made a bunch of probably bad decisions. And then we went through a valley. Cash dried up. We had grown too quickly. We cut a bunch of people and I had to be all over the news for it and so on. And then I went through my lock-in period where from July 2024 through basically recently, we grinded, we turned the business around. We became profitable. We shed liabilities. We refined our distribution channel. We cut staff again. We focused in our software, we focus on the software aspect of our business and we made it better. We doubled down on the features that worked. We streamlined the process. We got to it. We got to operating. Okay. We got to operating. And I know a lot of you guys watching want me to triple click on that because that's what you're interested in. And we will, but I've gone through that and that winter, has led me to a place now where I have to recognize that I am in another lock-in period, except instead of folding laundry, because that's not my reality anymore. That's also not my definition of working hard or working smart anymore. Because after so many times of down, across, up, down, across, up, down, across, I've now learned so much. I've developed my acumen. I've developed the opportunities that I have. I've developed my access to resources. I've developed everything. And so at the peak of that little business that I first started, it's not even the lowest end of what I'm creating now. And that's what happens after you're in the game for a decade. And so anyway, right now I'm in a lock-in period, which means I drive a nice car right now that I accumulated throughout my last peak. And I want to get rid of this nice car. I want to lower my monthly overhead. I want to be closer to family. I want to minimize my overhead. You might just say, John, these sound like prudent decisions, financial decisions, and they are. But also, this is me doing what I know I've been needing to do. And many of you have things going on in your life that you know in the back of your mind you need to do. But for whatever reason, we put them off. This is my equivalent of that. I know I've been needing to lower my overhead. I know I don't got it like that anymore. There were probably 4 or 5 years I made $500,000 a year. Easily. Speaking, brand deals. I forgot all the stuff I was doing back then, but I made $500,000 a year, a number of years in a row. And then, oh, by the way, I sold stock in my company. I was popping. But revenue dries up because all things are cyclical. And so I realized that I had accumulated the cost structure of a life. I had lifestyle creep. I had expanded my lifestyle based on the income that I was making. That income dries up. And now you're left with the overhead of that lifestyle creep. And so I need to divest. It is a time of austerity right now. And I would have been wise to do it sooner, but the next best time is to do it now. So now I'm divesting my interests in things that no longer serve me. And I'm stripping down to the bare minimum. And I am refocused on the things that I'd be wise to tend to. My business, my health, my family, and my faith. And if I can follow my own advice that I've just given you, and the own example that I've set for myself many times, and lock in. And the thing about a lock-in, by the way, is that the devil comes a-knocking, and he comes in the form of distractions. He comes in the form of enticements. He comes in the form of excitement. All of these things that our flesh is eager to indulge is actually the devil himself steering us off of the path of the wise man, of what we know we must do. And it's okay to indulge in, some escapism here and there, but I think my rule for myself is like 85%. I want to be 85% locked in. And I have a little Kobe Bryant that lives in my head that's like 85% is not fucking enough. But like 85% locked in. I allow myself 15% escapism. I have a friend, shout out Axel, who is 100% zero. Like he's 100% locked in. He eats fucking boiled chicken and potatoes, literally, and he sleeps on the ground. I mean, I don't know how he does it, but there's a reason he's in the position that he's in. And so anyways, locked in. I need to do what I've set for myself and what I'm asking you to consider doing as well, especially in this time, in these economic, very uncertain times with a new frontier technology breaking through, changing a bunch of shit. I need to be focused in doing what I need to do. And just like every time before, anytime you can lock in for a 18-month time span, the low end is 6 months, the high end is 24 months. 24 months is sometimes unbearable. If you can't hit 6 months, you're not committed enough. Anytime you can lock in from 6 to 18 months is the sweet spot. I can guarantee you will unlock for yourself a rapid ascension. If you want to be a writer, put your head down and write for 6 months. On the other side of that, you will see an ascension. You'll be published somewhere. You'll be picked up. You'll have an opportunity that you didn't have 6 months ago. If I want to become an open level champion in beach volleyball, lock in, put the work in 6 months to an extreme level almost, and I will have unlocked a new level of playing. Maybe I won't hit my long-term goal, but I'll hit a milestone. If you want to see progress in your business, lock in. If you want to see progress in your relationship, lock in. The thing about locking in is there are many different areas of our lives that coexist in parallel. This is one of the great learnings I've had over the last number of years. And you can be locked in some and not on others. And I'm not asking you or myself to be locked in on every area of life all at once. But the standard that I'm setting for myself is that is what I am attempting indeed. I'm going to be 85% locked in on all the areas that are most important to me, because I am hoping for a period of rapid self-growth and therefore fuller and fuller self-expression of the Spirit. And that is my message for you this week.